case study by Pooja Malhotra, who is the Director Enterprise Digital and Data Solution with American Express. To give you a background, Dynamics business professional with more than 18 years of experience in leading global strategic and transformational product and programs for some of the largest banks, fintech organizations globally, including American Express and Capital One Bank. She has led number of high-performing teams to deliver market-leading solutions supported by appropriate governance framework and has expertise across aspects of product management, including product design and marketing. She is currently responsible for accelerating the adoption of data quality for critical data across American Express. Can we welcome Pooja with big round of applause, please?
So, data is a strategic asset. Yeah, we all know that. According to a study, each of us generates about 1.7 MB of data every second. This was a few years ago. So while I'm here for 15-20 minutes, I will be generating upwards of 2 gigabytes of data. There's visual, there's audio, so probably more than that. It's great, right? So in the universe, there is on an average day 2.5 quintillion, which is 2.5 into 10 to the power of 18, count the zeros, amount of data in the world today. So that's great. More data, more for us to do with the data, right? Except around 84% of all business leaders have said that they do not trust the quality of the data on which they are making business decisions, okay? So yeah, we have a lot of data and not a lot of it is good. There's a lot of focus on AI, on ML, but really it's garbage in, garbage out. So, you know, I think this is a great segue into the last conversation where data quality was alluded to, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more today. So, data quality, is it a problem today because we, you know, have so much of it? It's really not. It's really a situation which has been evolving for a very long time. Over millennia, we've had problem with the quality of data we use for information, right? It's more accelerated now because of the data that we have. But I mean, there are cases that everybody has heard of, and over hundreds of years, we used to call it information. Now we call it data. So, you know, again, you make a bad decision, business decision basis the quality of data you have, you're going to make some very large mistakes. I won't go into each of these examples, but there are so many interesting ones. And these are published ones. So a lot of them are not published, right? All of you come from very large organizations. There are a lot of data experts in this room. And even within an organization, it's very difficult to size what is the cost of bad data and of not getting data quality right. Just to take one example, anyone here not heard of Amazon? Not shopped on Amazon? 2019, they had a glitch wherein everything was being sold for $94.5, okay? So on that day, for a couple of hours, thousands of dollars worth of merchandise, camera equipment, telescopes, everything was being sold at 99.9% discount. Now, I don't know whether it was honored or not, but that's the impact of millions worth of, you know, losses that can happen in a day, right? Okay, so some numbers, a lot of you may be aware of this. $3.1 trillion a year is the cost of bad data in the US alone. And this number is a few years old. And like I said, it's really difficult to measure this because not a lot of organizations do it well. Not a lot of organizations will publish or share what that number is. And it's something which is really hard to get right because the impact is on customer, on brand, on business decisions, on loss, on opportunity cost. I mean, there's no end to it, right? 2 billion a year roughly is what Fortune 1000 companies could make more in revenue if they just tweaked their data quality by 10%. That's it. Okay, so the scales are like really, really very large. And yes, of course, there's aspects to consumer experience as well. So okay, so those are the big numbers. What about the everyday problems? So I work with American Express. We have millions of customers across the world. So how does it impact? One small example. Let's make it real. We have have a customer called Sarah. She has an American Express card, and she's going on holiday. So she basically calls in, and she wants to upgrade. She has an American Express card, and she wants to upgrade her points and get upgraded from economy to business. She wants to fly in style. She's earned it. Okay, but when she calls in, there's a problem. The system hasn't picked up the points from her last 2 flights. So she's told that she cannot upgrade her flight because something somewhere, someone got it wrong. Okay? So what does that lead to? It leads to her a not very happy customer. It leads to a customer saying, what's of my reward points if I can't use them? And it leads to business loss opportunity for us and a bad experience all the way around. Okay? Now this is a very relatable experience. How many times have all of us experienced small issues like that on an everyday basis? So, how does American Express deal with this? So we're a 150-year-old company. We have a lot of data. We have millions of customers and billions of dollars worth of transactions every year. So if you think about it, it's billions of rows and billions of columns, and there's multiple databases, right? We have a 5-step program, and it's cyclical. Okay, it goes in a loop. It doesn't say that we do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we are done, tick, done. It's an evolving methodology. We treat every aspect of it very, very intensely, and we review, and it evolves over time. So I'll go over each of these aspects, but it's probably not something which is like going to be rocket science. The key is in the customization. Okay, this is what we do, and we do a lot of it, but every organization has to look at this framework for what works for them specifically basis their use cases. And us, we also look at it in a very bespoke fashion. We have a framework, but we have a lot of customizations depending on the use cases that we are dealing with at the time. So the first thing you've got to do is you've got to understand where you are. You understand your journey. What are the gaps? Where did you start? Where do you want to end up? How far are you from where you want to get to? Do you really want to cover the whole journey? What's the ROI? What's the root cause of your problems? Another statistic which said about 47% of all data is incorrect at source. So really when you're collecting data, it's either manual or automated, and there's roughly half the data that we collect, and when I say we, I mean all of us, has an error because it's human error, right? And you can't take that out of the picture, okay? So you have to understand what are the big problems that your organization is dealing with. One fact point, 90% of the data that exists in the ether today is duplicated. 90%. Only 10% is original data, right? Now, in that 10% also, let's say you only have the original data, which no one does, but if you have 10%, there's errors in that 10% also, right? So there's like, you're looking at huge volumes and huge scale, so where do you even begin? Okay, data quality measures. These are the 6 established industry-wide measures, right? Everybody knows. Data should be complete, data should be accurate, yes. But there are additional measures that we can take in place, and American Express has 2 or 3 others that we use when we talk about our own data, okay? Data integrity. We talk about data quality, but what is data integrity? It's a step beyond. Data quality is the data is fit for use. It is functional, it is appropriate for your business use. However, integrity goes a step further. Talks about, is data uncorrupted and usable across its life cycle? It talks about security. It talks also about context, and it talks about the new thing, location intelligence. Suddenly geography is exciting for those of us who didn't love it in school. Data enrichment. So basically data integrity is data quality plus plus. Okay, so when you're looking at an organization, and you're looking at your data, you don't only look at, I shouldn't have, this data should be accurate, it should go through all the hops in the right way. You should also be thinking about how secure is it. You should also be thinking about who's accessing it. You think about the security of it. Is it within your compliance and regulatory frameworks? Because if it isn't, you're going to get caught out. like my esteemed colleague just mentioned, regulations are getting really very, very tight. And we are an international banking operation, so we are heavily regulated. However, that's not going to be a reason for any organization going forward to say, well, we are not a regulated organization, so we are exempt. Not for much longer. There are very, very tight controls coming up, so it helps to have those regulations in place internally. So we have multiple lines of defense and multiple layers of audit that happen on our data and on our processes before regulators even come in. Okay? Again, how to keep data integrity right. And again, no rocket science here, but really, really hard to do. It's not the easiest thing to audit all your data and its processes, right? Always keep backup data. My goodness, how much data are we talking about? How much data are we looking to back up? And then, how long do we keep it? I backed up my data. Do I keep it for 5 years, 10 years, forever? So then you're talking about compute, cost, infrastructure. So like I said, it's very easy to say, yeah, back up your data and do, audit your trail, but it's really hard to do. So there are a lot of tools, there are a lot of enterprise utilities, a lot of processes that you have to get right to be able to even make a dent on each of these aspects, but we have to try. Okay? Implement access controls, again, who owns the data? Who can access the data? Who can touch the data? Who can apply a control? What is your critical data? How do you define your critical data? Does that mean non-critical data is not important? Because for regulators, all data is important, but yes, they will focus on critical data. Educate your workforce. People, processes, technology, culture, CXO buy-in. This is like an ecosystem. It's not going to happen. You put in the tools, then you put in the processes, and you're done. Have a couple of policies. It's a completely evolving ecosystem that you have to live in, you have to breathe, okay? A data-built organization starts from very bottom and builds its way, and actually is leader-driven. So people have to breathe and trust the data that they're working on, otherwise none of these steps are gonna work. Okay, enterprise utilities, we talked about them. So American Express has quite a few. We tend to build our own. We customize because we have a lot of data, very particular about how we manage that data. We have explored a lot of external solutions. We brought some in, and then we end up that, we customize it so much that it completely lost the shape and, from where we started. So we just say, okay, let's just build our own. But we do leverage some sort of outsourced solutions as well. But look at what you need. Look at what you need to do. What's the scale of your data and what you really want to do and what's out there. And really evaluate. I cannot stress enough, the value of doing pilots with any solutions that you're looking at. Has to be customized to your requirement. We're very advanced in our sort of AI, ML techniques as well. A lot of our utilities are driven by predictive modeling, by machine learning solutions. We have anomaly detection frameworks. We have threshold recommenders. We have moving averages. We have a lot of things that we build into our tooling for when we apply controls, and for when we build processes, and for when we're looking at remediation. Okay? However, all of this also has a human interface to it, in that it's not that we leave it to the machines and the tools and the models will tell us what to do. You've got to vet it manually, because at the end of the day, it goes through levels of screening. Okay. I think, again, my colleague referred to this already. It's very important to have the right policies and governance in place. Not only that it is a right sort of culture and, to build that sort of sanity in the organization, but to ensure that you are doing things per what is your compliance, okay, off the land and general best practice, okay. You have to have the right guidelines, you have to have the right frameworks, you have to be able to defend them to regulators, okay. Privacy, compliance, and security, obviously, and KPIs. How are you going to measure where you are, or where you're going to get to? Okay, so you have to be able to justify these things to yourself, and to your leadership, and to your regulators, And KPIs are the best way of doing this. Define your threshold, see where you want to go. Okay. I'm going to end with this, okay? So, does anyone know the story of the blind men and the elephant? So, for those of you who haven't, there was a group of blind men who had never experienced or, seen an elephant. So, they were introduced to an elephant, and each of them touched one part of the elephant, right? Someone touched the trunk, someone touched the, the tusk, someone the ear. And depending on what they touched, they identified what it was, okay? Of course, they were all wrong. But this is sort of synergistic with what I'm trying to say, which is that we all look at data as little bits of what is our world, right? And I would encourage everyone in this room, because I feel it's our collective responsibility, look at it as the whole. Look at the ecosystem of data in which we operate, build solutions holistically. Okay? Don't look at our little corner and then try to fix it and then you're done, because probably you're not going to get it right. Okay? And with that, I will end. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and presentation. We'll take one or two quick questions. Yes.
Hello, audible? Pooja, I think so, great presentation. I'm one of your loyal customer for more than 2 decades, so let me acknowledge that. And I think so, I've been banking across not only India, globally, but the experience with American Express have been amazing. So I think so, it needs a plot, like, the benchmark they have set not only in India, globally, is something amazing. Point which I would like to know is, like, you touch base upon one very key point was the KPI. When we talk to your call center, when even a small problem is not a problem, but it is an experience. How do you handle that, and how that is seamlessly taken care of is something if you can insight us, because we in India is like, we need follow-up. Even if I raise a ticket to an XYZ bank, I have to follow up on my tickets. But when it's an American Express, it's an feedback. So, how do you handle it, and it can be a happy customer, it can be an unhappy customer, it can be anything, but that how you tap on those points, and what is that learning experience, if you can share with us, because we are in corporate, manufacturing, even in banking and various vertical. These are one of the softer aspects of data, but how do you handle it, if you can enlighten? Thank you.
Thank you for all the compliments. So American Express has been rated #1 on customer satisfaction on many, many years. That doesn't happen by accident, but let me relate it to data. Part of it is because of the way we are structured. We're a closed loop, so not only are we an issuing organization in that we give you credit cards, we are also a network. We have our own network. We don't rely on Visa and MasterCard. What that does, it gives us both sides of the data. We know the data from the customer, but we also know the data from the merchants. So we know that Pooja has gone to Gap to buy a shirt of this size and this color at this time, in this date, in this place. Okay? What it allows us to do is a 360-degree view of a customer. By the way, all the data we access is permissible data which we have got permission from customers to use. That is the first thing. Amex is very conservative about the data we are allowed to use. So that allows us to build a 360 view of our partners. Okay? We call our customers our partners because that's what they are. And so that data gives us the power to be able to deal with your query. It allows us to have very low fraud rates across the industry because we see both sides of the story. And that's the reason that you are able to have that customer experience.
Okay, one more last.
Thank you, Pooja, for the great presentation. Today, in the world of Siri and Alexa, data is being compromised from a privacy level. All smart cards who operate onto it are also privy to this data, because no sooner I say to my wife, let's go and buy a t-shirt which is of 𝗙𝘂𝗵𝗄𝗎, and I immediately get a ping from the credit card department that there is a voucher for you in terms of 𝗙𝗏𝗁. In the gamut of data privacy, how do you, from a quality standpoint, take this, because when I say you, I'm just referring to the industry. Please do not interpret it as American Express. My bad for using that word. But as an industry, there is a huge compromise and, place where my secure data is being really used for publication as well as utility of selling point for 𝗙𝗏𝗁, which is a compromise. So how your 2 cents around that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point, it's a great concern, right? And I think I'll come back to regulation. Over the years, banking corporations have been regulated, insurance has been regulated, a lot of financial services are regulated, but a lot of the leading fintechs have not been regulated. A lot of the payment systems, the mushrooming payment systems that we have in India, but everywhere else, are not regulated. Your Googles and Amazons, do a very great job. So when you say Amex gets some information, or any organization gets information, I can say that a lot of the regulated organizations get data from the right sources, like I said, permissible data. This is where we, get the data from what is allowed to be, which the customers have permitted. But is there a lot of data out there which is just out there and nobody's looking at, and there's stuff about me out there which I haven't allowed anyone to use? Yeah, probably. So I think the key to this is regulation. There really is no other way. But it's a journey. There is so much data being generated, and there's so much happening in the industry. Technology is faster than what we can regulate, right? So it's going to take its time, but I think we're getting there slowly, and I think a lot of organizations, including American Express, are very, like I said, very conservative almost in what we are allowed to use.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Ken, ma'am.